Welcome to this broadcast. The subject is that production and operations management. Today I will discuss one of the aspects of production and operations management, that is planning and control for operations. As we know that manufacturing systems consist of the three flows. One of the flow is that for planning and control, and that planning and control, there is a flow of information. Now production planning and control is considered as heart and lungs of any manufacturing organization. If it fails, as human beings are dead if heart and lungs fails. So same thing, if production planning and control fails, the organization also will fail. Organization will fail in which way? It will not be able to deliver the goods on the due date. It will not be able to deliver the goods in this quantity desired and the desired quality, and cost also will be very high. So to manage effectively the operations of any manufacturing organization, even non-manufacturing, we require the planning and control we require to succeed in planning and control activities of the organization. So let us first see what are the objectives of planning and control. We call this subject as production planning and control. This deserves to be an independent subject in the specialization of operations management. Traditionally, it was managed by the clerks in the organization. When the industrial organization has started at the beginning of 20th century, it was always considered as a glorified clerical activities. Though it has an immense importance in the manufacturing organization and as well as success of the manufacturing organization, but it was always considered as a glorified clerical activities in that organizations. And subsequently, after Second World War, the situation has started changed remarkably, and again it changed drastically with the advent of the computer in 60s decade. And today, no large organization can afford to run without any existence of production planning and control department and without the existence of computer, and monitoring the production planning and control activities without computer, because all production planning and control activities is controlled by the flow of information, and the successfulness management of information systems in any organization, it depends upon the how better you are in organizing the information systems in your organizations. And that's why today we have moved from that glorified clerical activities to a coveted department as production planning and control department in any manufacturing organizations, and the higher managements are giving more importance to this department. So let us see what are the objectives. In short, we call it the PPC, production planning and control department. What are the objectives of PPC? To produce the product of right quality in right quantity at right time by optimum use of resources. All are very important in any organization. Right quality, without the right qualities of the product, it will not be sold to the customer. Even if you succeed by somehow to sell it once, there will not be the repeat purchase for your product. Sustainable successfulness or existence of any organization, it depends upon the repeat purchase of the customer of your product. If customer never turns out to purchase another fan, what will be happen? What will be the fate of that organization? Or customer never comes to purchase another shirt or another few meters of clothes manufactured by your organization. Suppose a shoe manufacturing firm produces the shoes, and once it is sold to the customer, and it is known that shoe is not going to last for whole life. Its life may be 2 years, maybe 3 years. And after that, he needs another shoes, and he never turns up to your organization. What will happen to that? So that's why we always call it as a right quality. Same thing in right quantity. If you do not have produced the right quantity, either you don't meet the customer. Some of the customers, they go without your product even though they are interested to purchase your product. It has to be in the right time. Like in the festival times, demand for clothes and shoes or garments industries, that increases heavily starting from Dussehra to Eid. During this period, if you cannot produce or you don't have these finished good inventories of right quantities, then you lose the customer. And this is the peak demand in the whole year in India. And of course, all these things has to be made with a reasonable cost, so that you can also make certain amount of profit, which is required for your survival in the competitive environment. So this is the whole objectives in a very simple terms of the production planning and control department, that to produce a product of right quantity in right quality at right time by optimum use of resources. Now there are two kinds of activities. One is production planning and another is the production control. So how we define production planning? Production planning is the function concerned with planning, directing and controlling the methods to be used to make products and the way in which the production facilities, buildings, machines and equipments should be laid out in the space available for production. And it has the 3 levels of planning, 3 levels of production planning. One is factory planning. Overall factory planning means overall factory planning, that is the planning for the whole product. An organization may be manufacturing the different kinds of product, and for this whole product they needs to make a plan. A factory may be the dedicated factory for certain simple goods. At the same time, a factory may be the mixture producing varieties types of goods. And variety always exists in any kinds of manufacturing industries. Like say Maruti might be manufacturing just 10 different types of car. On the other hand, a shoe manufacturing firm, say Bata or Liberty, they are manufacturing at least 50 different types of shoes. And another specialty in the shoe manufacturing business is that in each type of shoes, the feet of the human beings are of different size. So each size, each variety, he must be manufacturing of 10 different sizes. As your variety and sizes are increasing or varying, your complexity is also increasing. But when you are making a plan for the factory for manufacturing all kinds, accommodating all kinds of manufacturing of shoes, you are concerned about the whole lot sets of products. So factory planning is that whole systems you are organizing. Then comes the process planning, how each product or each shoes or each type of vehicle will be manufactured either by the Bata or Liberty or by the Maruti. And then comes the operation planning. Usually all operations are any product, it is a multi-product firm. Any company is a multi-product firm, as well as there is multi-stage manufacturing systems. Rarely any operation, any product will come out with a single operations. It will have the 3-4 different types of operations, and in some of the organization it is the complexity is much more. Like shoe manufacturing, for a single shoe manufacturing there are 60 to 65 operations. So each operation has to be planned. So that is called this operation planning. That means as we move from the top, number 1 to number 3, in number 1 you are more directing towards the focusing in the particular activity, specific activities. Starting from the whole systems, gradually you are moving towards the specific task. Let us see what is the definition of the production control. Production control is the function of management which plans, directs and control the material supply and processing activities of an enterprise so that specified products are produced by the specified methods to meet the approved sales program. These activities are carried out in such a manner that labor, plant and capital available are used to the best advantages. So you want to control planning. After planning, we want to produce it. We want to deliver the goods to the customer in the appropriate time by utilizing our resources appropriately. And what are the activities involved? Similarly, there are 3 levels of production control activities. First is the programming. In programming, we are concerned about the production program of the whole product production program. That means every week our production target is fixed. How to achieve that target. Second is that ordering. Output of components, that is shop orders and purchase orders. Because output of components, again I would like to point out here that any product, it has at least the 3 stages. It has a finished product, then sub-assembly and then components. That means we start moving from components, then sub-assembly and then finished product. So output of components, and these components or sub-assembly may be manufactured, some of the things may be manufactured by their own, or it may be supplied by some outsider party. If it has to be supplied by the outsider party, then you have to give them order. That we call the purchase requisition. Unless you tell the outside party to supply, that party is not going to supply you. And that party will also take some time to supply. That usually we call the supply lead time. So accordingly, you have to release the purchase order. At the same time, your manufacturing lead time is there. Even in your manufacturing, in your own organization, if you place an order today, there is a certain amount of time is required for different components or different sub-assembly in that way. So we should be able to find out that, and accordingly shop orders or purchase orders, requisition orders should be, that we call the output of components. And then dispatching, plan output from machine tools and work centers. You have these machine tools. Usually machine building industries has a machine tools, or sometimes we call it as a work center. We don't call exactly the machine tools. We call it as a work center in some of the cases, like shoe manufacturing farm and other, even in the assembly lines. So these components that we have seen in the second stage, that has to be managed and properly ordered. So at least that authorization with the dispatching activities incorporates that authorization of starting that program in the specific department. And there the output from the particular machine or particular work center we want to fix, so that our further planning becomes a much more easier. That we call the daily plans and loading schedule. That means how the jobs will be loaded in a particular machine, tools or in the work center. That has to be decided. Here also, like our production planning, as we move from the top to the bottom of these 3 activities, you will see we are concerned with the first is the system, then subsystems and subsystems. That means we are first at the beginning we are concerned about the whole product, and then we are concerned about the output of a particular components, and then we are concerned about the output from particular machine tools and work centers. So what are the decisions involved in the production planning and control activities? What to produce, how much to produce, that is the quantity, when to produce, that time frame, where to produce, which machine tools or work center should be involved, and which labor or operator or mechanic should be involved in that, and how to produce it. That means by utilizing your technical know-how for manufacturing that particular component or sub-assembly or product, it has to be decided. So what to produce, how much to produce, when to produce, where to produce, and how much to produce. These are the essential decisions, important decision that has to be taken by the production planning and department to execute the order placed by the customer to that organization. Now for any decision making process, there will be input of the information. Without the input of the information, managers cannot take the decision. Even if we call the managers as the decision maker, decision makers take the decision on the basis of information flow in that process. So what are the information required for taking these decisions? We termed is the PQRST. P is the product to be manufactured, but not only product, we are not happy with that. We want to broken down. We want to break down into slight more activities. What we call the BOM, Bill of Materials activity. Bill of Materials, we require the drawing of that so that it can be manufactured. Then material specification and the stages. How many stages of manufacturing will be there? It is a single stage manufacturing, multi-stage manufacturing, and also we want to find out whether it is at the component stage, that is C, then it is a sub-assembly stage, or it is a final assembly stage. So where it will go, this component. So product should be broken down into that hierarchically different level, that is final assembly, sub-assembly, components. Then Q is the quantity that should be known to us. Quantity is not that annual quantity. We can have the varied, you see, annual quantity means 52 weeks. 52 weeks, every week we may produce the same amount, we may not produce the same amount. There is a variability. And in fact, as a matter of fact, in most of the organization, there is a variation of that. That's why the complexity increases. Because your demand variation is there. As I have told, that we have the demand nature of, say, garment industry, shoe manufacturing industry, depending upon the festival. In our country, if you take from Dussehra to Eid, is the main festival, and where the demand will be peak. So naturally your production rate also will be different in different weeks of the month. And this quantity and timing, it should be, quantity is not that simple quantity. Quantity in which week, how much quantity should be produced, so that can be converted into the date also. Then route. Route means what is the sequence of operations. That means, as we know, the manufacturing system consists of 3 flows. One of the important flows is the flow of materials. So this flow of materials, in which route these materials will flow, that should be known to the peoples involved in the manufacturing of that product. Then supporting services. Lots of supporting services is required for them, like tools, jigs and fixtures, many other things. So these are the information required, and time. So unless we have the calculation of the time, how much time it will take to produce at every stage, that should be known. Otherwise you cannot calculate the total time required for the manufacturing. You cannot calculate also the cost of manufacturing. You also are unable to calculate the manpower required for the manufacturing. So time is a crucial factor. Time for each stage of manufacturing should be known to you. Without knowing it, all your plan will fail. So these are the information that PQRST must be set all right by the organization, so that appropriate decision regarding what, how much, when and where to produce can be taken by the decision maker or the manager of the production planning and control department effectively. This function of production planning and control, or PPC, can also be described in 3 different stages: pre-planning, planning and control. Let us see what are the tasks involved in or activities involved in various stages. Pre-planning. First is that product development and design. Because the product that you are going to manufacture, it has to be developed and designed. And today, when you design the product, we also find out certain term has evolved over the last 30 years, which we call DFM, design for manufacturability, DFA, design for assembly. Previously, design department people used to design the product without giving much attention the viewpoint of manufacturing department, which consists of components, sub-assembly as well as the assembly department viewpoint. But it has been found subsequently that any error in designing or the accuracy or precision required for the set by the design department cannot be achieved or cannot be really required in manufacturing. At that time problem crops up. And when problem crops up at a later stage, rectification of the product, it is more costlier than it is required to be corrected at the design level. And that's why today, whenever this question comes of the product development and design, everybody tries to design it by considering these factors that this term has coined up, DFM, design for manufacturability, that viewpoint of the manufacturing department needs to be considered at the design stage itself. Then sales forecasting and estimating. This is more important in case of make to stock farm. In manufacturing there are 3 types of farm. One is make to stock, another is make to order, another is make assemble to order. So sales forecasting and estimating, it is more important in 2 types of farm, that is make to stock and assemble to order. So how much they want to produce, what will be the probable demand in this next year, that needs to be forecasting or estimating. In case of the assemble to stock to order to produce farm, usually you get order and then you produce. Then equipment policy, how much automation should be required in your farm for manufacturing this? What will be the cost if you implement so much automation, higher degree of automation? Whether this volume of manufacturing should be economical for you or not. Depending upon these kind of things, one has to decide the equipment policy. Then pre-planning production, the trial production, to find out what will be what we call the pilot run. That is called the pre-planning production, to find out the possible defects or drawback of this kind of manufacturing. Then comes the planning. Factory layout, how whole factory will be laid out for the product. Factory layout means whole factory, how the different departments will be at the different places. Now inside the department, how the machine will be laid out. All these things that incorporated the factory layout. That means different departments where it will be located, and in a particular department which machines will be there and in which location. Then machines and equipments, exactly which machines and equipments you are going to choose as per the requirement for your forecasted or estimated demand. How many such equipment should be required, what will be the capacity of that. That we can call it as a capacity planning also. Then manpower planning. This manpower planning cannot be done without the calculation of what we call the PQRST. T is the time. Unless we have the time calculation properly, manpower planning also cannot be done. Then methods and routing. That means again this technological sequence of operation, that should be set all right. That we call the methods and routing. That means methods employed including various supporting activities required for the manufacturing at every stage of the manufacturing, and the route in which the materials will flow, that needs to be decided. What type of materials you are going to use for the manufacturing, then estimating times. These are called the planning. And then control. For control purpose, we have the dispatching, that means giving authorization to the required department to start manufacturing. Without the dispatching activities, order, store suite is not going to release the materials to the department, because everything has to be kept into account in the manufacturing firm. And then loading and scheduling. This is to get the optimum output from a particular machines. In any machine at a certain point of time, there may be more than one number of jobs are waiting to get the chance. And in any machine, only one job can be loaded. Now, which job should be loaded? That decision has to be taken. Usually this decision is taken on the basis of the due date given to them. Earliest due date job should be processed first. Certain rule has to be evolved in the organization. This is part of the controlling. Because we give the high priority to maintain the due date. Whatever due date has been given for the product, this due date can be transferred to the sub-assembly, and due date can subsequently also be transferred to the component stage. So every stage has a due date. If we want to meet the final assembly date at which the final product should be delivered to the customer, and every firm, they don't want to be delay their dispatch to the customer. So in that case, the due date gets the very high priority, and accordingly loading and scheduling should be done. Expediting. This task is given that in spite of all these tasks, whether planning by the computer or without computer as it is used to be done earlier, if everything goes as per the planning, then no expediting is required, because everything happens as per the plan, what you have planned. But usually what happens, it is just such complex operations in a large manufacturing organization that many things goes wrong. Something goes wrong. We cannot say there are just many things. Something goes wrong. So in that case, you need to replan it. Even after replanning also, some of the things it will be visible, seen. It has been observed that either sub-assembly or components has not reached to the sub-assembly at the appropriate time, and due to this non-availability of the components at the sub-assembly or the sub-assembly at the final assembly, the work is suffered. Final product could not be assembled properly. Suppose in a refrigerator manufacturing firm, in assembly lines, even one nut bolt, if it is not available, it remains incomplete. You just cannot send the refrigerator without fitting that single nut and bolt. And for that purpose, your final assembly is waiting, sitting idle. People are sitting idle. Equipment is idle, as well as the people are sitting idle there. Now that, how to reduce that thing? So production planning and control department will have certain task, expedite the matter, find out why it is held up and for which component it is held up. Now at the moment that component at which place, find out that, push it through this and try to complete this task as early as possible, so that at the earliest it reaches to the final assembly or sub-assembly, so that they can complete this task. This process, some people are engaged for this, they call it expediture. But at the same time, if it is required, and frequently if it is more expediting is required, that also shows that your planning and controlling is not working properly, and that gives a very bad signal to the shop floor that production planning and control department, what they plan, a rubbish plan they prepared, and that's why these plans cannot be executed, and people also start laughing at the activities of the production planning and control. But still, we should try to minimize it as far as possible, but complete avoidance of the expediting task is not yet possible. With the help of the computer, we could able to monitor it better, we could able to reduce it, but we could not completely abolish it. Still that task has to be done and in fact even the all good manufacturing industries in India, there are still in production planning control department some expeditors are there. Their task is only to find out this bottleneck needs to be solved. And then inspection and evaluating. Evaluating means different kinds of schedule incurs the different kinds of cost to the company. So when you generate different kinds of schedule or production plan, usually the lowest cost will be the best. So that evaluation has to be made. If there is a certain alteration, that means replanning, you also incur certain amount of cost. So this evaluation is that for this plan, what is the cost? Or there are various other measures or criteria are there on which we can measure the effectiveness of production planning and control activities. I have just told that one of these criteria is the cost. It can be another criteria that what percentage of the components or product could able to meet the due date, and how much is the late jobs, proportion of the jobs. These are all there are various criteria could be evolved and chosen by the different firms depending upon their specific situations. Now all these activities can be seen by this diagram, that flow of information in manufacturing systems. You see at the top demand order information. This demand order information, it can be forecasted or it can be given by the company, that make to order company. So make to stock companies, it has to be forecasted, and make to order company, it will be given by the customer. Then aggregate production planning. We have certain task, we call it as aggregate production planning. Then aggregate production planning, then we have from that aggregate production planning, we have production plan information. This production plan information, it is a production process planning. So production, after getting this production plan information, that means in a 52 weeks in a year, in weekly, what will be the plan? That we call it as a production plan information. Usually Indian firms, they maintain weekly as well as monthly program, and some of the firm weekly program is again reduced to the daily plan. And again you see the complexity. Some firms are operating only in one shift, some firms in two shifts, and few firms are operating in 3 shifts itself. That means 24 hours. So accordingly, this production plan information has to be reduced to that level. And then we have a production process planning. That means we have, for production process planning, we require production technical information. So technical information means that which route it will follow, that PQ, RST, R, and what time it will take. That will also work as an input to the aggregate production planning. At the same time, it will also work as an input information for production process planning. From production process planning, we get production process information. That means how it will be manufactured stage-wise, operations-wise. And after production planning information, we have the production scheduling. Once we have made the production plan, then only you can schedule it. That means at what in each shift, at what point of time, which job should be loaded in which machines. If you have in one particular department 20 machines and maybe 40 jobs are waiting to be loaded, so how it will be done, that has to be decided. This we call the production schedule information. From production schedule information, this is an input to the production implementation. It has to be implemented, and also production process information is also an input to that. Then we get this production result data. After implementation, then gradually this is the output side of the production planning and on. So production result data we started getting. Then comes the production control and production control informations. This production control information, if it meets your desired as per plan, then no further action will be required. If it is not work as per your plan, for in that case it has to go back to the production implementation. That means replanning will be needed. This replanning has to be done again, and till this process will go on as an iterative process. You will see that in the diagram in the left hand side there is a feedback loop. This feedback loop has to go from production plan control information to this number 4, that production implementation, and this will continue till your desired output matches exactly for which it has been planned for. Now, among all these activities, you will find in this diagram some number is given 1, 2, 3. 1 is that aggregate production planning, 2 is the production process planning, and 3 is the production scheduling. These 3 activities we call it is a planning stage. And also we have 4 and 5. 4 is the production implementation and 5 is the production control. This we call the control stage. This is the flow of information in manufacturing systems. As we have told earlier, that manufacturing system consists of 3 flows. One is the flow of materials, another is the flow of cost or value, another is the flow of information. Our planning and control task is a part of the flow of information. So this is the diagram that shows that how this information flows in the manufacturing systems and how it is related with the production planning and control activities at various stages. Now, what is the factors determining the complexity of PPC? In some of the firms, PPC is very easy. In some of the firms, PPC is very complicated. So, what are those factors that determines this complexity of the PPCs? There are various factors that we will discuss today itself. That first is that types of transformation. Transformation by integration. There can be 3 types of transformation. Transformation by integration. That means you have the large number of inputs and ultimately 1 or 2 products or few products you are coming out of that kind of manufacturing industries. Like your almost all consumer durable industries, like your automobile, domestic appliances, entertainment electronics industries are of this nature. We have the lots of components, sub-assembly then, and then we have the few outputs. We call it is a transformation by integration. Another type of farm is there, that is called transformation by disintegration. Mostly petroleum refineries are like that. We have only single or few inputs, and gradually in the different parts of as the process goes on, at every various stages we get the various kinds of output. Mainly petroleum refineries are like this. Then transformation by service. This is the service sector. Then we can have also the type of industry. Engineering industries. Mostly the machine building industries. Like Hindustan Machine Tools, Kirloskar Machine Tools. These are some of the companies that can be called as a engineering industries. There are of course many other firms. Even Maruti can be called as an internal engineering industries. Then we can have textile and garment industries. It is a huge industry in our country, textile and garment. Then chemical industries. Chemical industry can be the basic process industries, metallurgical process industries. It can be this nuclear power plant or nuclear type of industries. Then food processing industries, which is yet to come up in our country in a large way. These are not very large sector, food processing industries. Some of the companies are in large sectors like baby food production, Cadbury type of farm. But real agricultural food fruit processing industries, it is yet to come up. So in every types of farm, production planning and control will be different. And another farm, in chemical group, you see the paint industries and drug industries. Their production planning and activities will be different. So these types of industries also increases the complexity in the, or we can say introduces the complexity in the production planning and control. Then types of production. Usually types of production is categorized by volume and variety. We can have the mass production, that means where variety is less but numbers or volumes are very large. So that we call the mass production. Then assembly lines, then batch production where varieties are more and each variety few components or few product we made, and job shop, that means whenever we place an order you made this. Also in this category, size of the product is another factor. Like some companies are manufacturing boiler, or some companies are manufacturing say turbine for thermal power plant, and some company is manufacturing like fan, simple fan, domestic fan. So size, there is a huge difference in the size, and that will also add the complexity in various way in the farm. Then types of layout, line or product layout. Mass production usually depends upon the line or product layout. Assembly is also line or product layout. Process or functional layout, mostly batch and job shop will be the process or functional layout. And then we can have the group or cellular layout also. This is the recent addition. We cannot say just recent, at least for the last 30 years gradually it is coming up in our country, that to get rid of the problem of batch and job shop, which was traditionally based on process or functional layout, gradually they are replacing like group or cellular layout. Some of the farms in our country, they have done it successfully because the TQM and many other applications can be done only if you have the group or cellular layout. Some of the farms are getting the Deming Awards instituted by Japan. They are of this variety. And material flow variable, batch quantity and batch frequency, and ordering phase. So these are the certain variables which determines the complexity of production planning and control. So today we end it here.